Howdy, and welcome back to the GLORIO Chat. You are listening to episode 133 of the premier anime podcast on the internet.
That's
Now,
a far
March...
better introduction. You should do this more often.
Thank you. Yes, that's right, everybody. It is your host G who has usurped the podcast once again.
You're the captain
to make you
now.
all listen to my 30-minute diatribes about whatever high-profile manga is getting adapted into an anime this season.
Because Gel never allows you to do those when.
Oh no, only when I run the show. But yeah, as you might pick up on listening to that, yes. It's time. It's here. You know, March Madness is heating up, but we're here to talk about the most important discussion in spring, and that is spring 2023 anime. It's here.
What
exactly
is March Madness?
Oh, it's like the NCAA like basketball. It's like the big college basketball like tournament.
Right.
You know? It's the tournament arc of college basketball.
Right. I always forget college sports are somehow a thing in the US.
I mean, there's a lot of money involved and a lot of careers raging on it.
Indeed, but just like them, we are also here to talk about a very is it a competitive season? I guess we're going to talk about it. I think we have a couple 700-pound gorillas in the room that we're definitely going to have to get to here. But
we're at least going to have to decide which one is the best gay Gundam show of the season. So
wow.
But before we get into that, I think it's time to introduce everybody. As I already said, I'm your host G for this week. With me is Iro.
I'm still here. I haven't been usurped. I'm not dead yet. I'm the traitor's vizier.
And I need you because
sold him out for a high position.
You know, your morals are gray.
I'm out here prostituting my loyalty.
Exactly. You get the job done. As we all know, Iro gets results. That's his campaign slogan.
He would burn down the podcast just to rule the ashes.
Yes. That voice you just heard there is Aqua.
Hey, I think we all need to take a moment to appreciate or shout out the real OG, Ash Ketchum, being able to retire at the ripe age of 10, living the life.
He's living the dream.
I can't believe that they threw him off that cliff at the end. It was really dramatic.
I can't believe he fell into a trap hole.
But before we hold our moment of silence for Ash Ketchum, we have one more person to introduce, and that would be Zig.
Yes, you should hold a moment of silence for me first.
Quiet, Chi, you're disturbing the silence.
I'm here.
Look, man, dead air is the podcast killer. We can't allow it to happen.
That's what the editing room is for.
Indeed. But yes, in all seriousness, we are here to talk about Spring Anime 2023. I think for multiple reasons, this is a pretty hotly anticipated season. You know, maybe if not necessarily for entirely, you know, the new faces and shows. Though, again, if you are, if you are a regular consumer of Shonen Jump trash, I'm sure you have a lot to be excited about.
There's plenty of things. There's plenty of things that will be airing in spring that we will not speak about today that are hotly anticipated by everyone else.
Yes,
I was going to say that wasn't a judgmental introduction at all. There.
Look, our deepest apologies to Mashle, Jigaraku, Dr. Stone, and Demon Slayer. But look, we don't really have anything to say. But what we do have something to say about is the most influential, it is actually not the most long running, but the arguably most watched anime in the world. Pokemon.
Yeah.
It's over. That's it. No more Pokemon.
There's no more. It's
Pokemon Pokemon is cancelled. Yeah.
For those out of the loop, Ash Ketchum, the protagonist of the series since 1996.
He has returned to his home planet.
He's been retired. The alleged final episode with Ash and Pikachu as the protagonist aired this past week, and in a couple weeks they'll starting a brand new series.
No, no. All Pokemon is finished forever. All games are cancelled. All cards are shredded. Pokemon is done.
Yeah.
So,
No,
as
Roll
someone
into,
who
roll into Yokai Watch now.
Mhm.
Yokai Watch is still a thing, right?
barely, it is
Nominally.
truly wild how quickly Yokai Watch kind of came and went, right?
I mean, the thing
mean-
is that it like briefly displaced Pokemon, and then Pokemon just came back swinging and ate its lunch
Yes.
money. Like,
I also don't really think that we are in a position to say how cooked Yokai Watch is, since it always seemed to be a very Japan-centric
Yeah.
thing to me,
Right,
so.
fair enough. But
But-
yeah, as someone who has not been keeping up with Pokemon at all, like
Mhm.
I don't need you guys to give me like the full rundown on the finale of Pokemon, but at least for the sake of like, our season
Okay.
preview, what does this mean? Well, no. If you want to get into it, by all means, please
Yeah.
do.
Okay,
But in
have
the
you ever
context
seen
of-
an episode of Pokemon?
Yes.
The finale was just like that.
Jokes aside,
Yeah.
the so-called Ash Victory Lap, the sequence of episodes after the main line Pokemon Journeys anime where he won the world tournament and became the best trainer of all. Like the 11 to 12 episodes after that were very inconsequential, like normal episodes of Pokemon.
yeah, they just kind of fired up the Pokemon episode Rivathron.
Yeah,
so
it's
here's
straight up
this-
just like Ash,
yeah.
Rock, and Misty are walking around, and oh no, this one Pokemon is here, and it's in trouble. We need to help this Pokemon with its episode of the week problem, and also Team Rocket will show up and cause some shenanigans.
That's really interesting, I guess, because
Honestly,
I
I
guess
felt it was pretty. This is the way I would have wanted the show to end. Really.
okay, sure.
Like, I think because like we joke, but Pokemon has never had a running over plot to any major extent. Of course, there have been arcs and stuff like that, but you can't really end the Pokemon plot because it didn't really have one to begin with. So, kind of going out on some like fun, goofy, fillery episodes, I was kind of okay with it.
I guess
the
that's why I
action-
say I think it's interesting, right? Because in my mind, it's like you have a show that runs that long. It's like there really wasn't any like writer on that show who's like, I'm gonna do the run back on that storyline, or like
Your long-term callback is in the last episode. Team Rocket attacks him outside Pallet Town, and all of his Pokemon are Professor Oak's place. Pikachu gets kidnapped. He has no Pokeballs on him. Who will save us? Pidgeot returns.
Shit.
What, like 1,200 episodes
Yeah,
later?
something like
That's
that.
all right.
And he's like, "Oh man, it's Pidgeot." And Team Rocket's like, "His Pidgeotto evolved? When was that?" And that there's your climax.
Ho-Oh doesn't even show up.
Does Charizard finally listen to Ash?
No, Charizard had like a fight with Squirtle.
No.
The Squirtle squad showed up as Super Sentai, which was pretty
Sure.
good. But
Okay.
But yeah, it's all like with like even having like Brock and Misty back is not such a big deal because they've been back several times in recent years.
Right.
So it was kind of just more like, hey, it's you guys again. I mean, if you're gagging for Tracy Sketchit appearances, he appears in the final episode.
As does
twice.
Gary Oak.
Yeah, Gary Oak's there.
Well, of course, Gary's got to show up.
Yeah,
right?
side note,
like-
one of the problems with Japanese Gary is that he's so obviously voiced by a lady, it sounds super incongruous. Like,
the old,
he
the old
sounds like a
Goku
6-year-old.
Right. Except like Ash has been, I mean, I guess Rika Matsumoto has never not done that voice for 20 years,
Right.
so she can sell it. But yeah, I mean, it's
Actually, I'm real curious. Did Ash ever have his like climactic duel against Gary?
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah,
Yeah.
That happened
a million years ago.
Yeah, that happened like
Okay,
800 episodes.
That was at the end of Johto, I think.
Look,
Yes.
man,
Yeah.
I've been out for a long time. All right,
That's fair.
I just didn't know. Did they ever settle
Yeah.
that beef? Like,
They
Screw
did.
Gary, it's all about Paul now.
They did.
Uh.
God, that's not even good. Yeah, so he many years ago he battled Gary in like the top 8 of the Pokemon Johto League and defeated his Blastoise with his Charizard and
Somehow.
He owned Gary so hard, Gary retired from being a Pokemon
Yep.
trader forever.
yep.
all right, that's pretty good. If I had known that, maybe I would have stuck around. But
Anyway,
Yeah, so in the context of Pokemon as a whole, and at least for you guys in your relationship with the Pokemon TV anime, what is it called actually? Is it just because I've just written it down here as Pokemon 2023?
The official English language billing they've been using for it is Pokemon Horizons.
Yeah, but in Japanese it's just known as Pocket Monsters, as it's always been known. Like,
yes.
So what does Horizons mean then for you guys?
I'm interested.
Yeah, I think it represents a departure from the deeply conservative path that basically everything Pokemon has been ploughing for a couple of decades now, right? You know, like, for better or worse, Scarlet or Violet were games which significantly shook up the status quo of how those games work, and it seems like they're trying to do the same thing here.
Right. They seem to be focusing more on an ensemble cast. They seem to be focusing more on exploring different corners of the world. Something they already kind of played with in the latest series, because the latest series of Pokemon with Ash was not Ash going through the world of Sword and Shield as he has always been doing, but it's more like him with his annoying companion Ash 2.0, sort of like traveling to different places in every single episode. Like, they would have a base in Kanto, and then they would just travel to different places in different regions every episode.
And in retrospect, now it's obvious that was like a grand farewell tour, right?
Yeah,
like it was kind of like that's the thing. Another reason why the finale was fairly low key is because basically the past 3 years have kind of been like a huge reunion tour. Most of the old companions have showed up and all that stuff. So it's...
Right, because in hindsight, Sun and Moon was the last. Like, I guess that's the last time that the anime, like, broadly, like, stayed in the region of the game, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
And even then, you know, there were signs that status quo was breaking, because they rebooted the movies into their own separate continuity for a bit and all that kind of stuff, you know. So clearly they've been trying to fight the format for a while now, which is understandable, you know. After 26 years, it's kind of hard to tell new stories in that sort of framework. So yeah, I think you know, I'm not expecting a huge leap forward in storytelling. I mean, it's still a kids show, right? But
it at least seems to be something that is focusing more on being its own thing, I think.
Yeah,
like there have been explicit references to like an arc plot, with like our new female main character having a mysterious pendant that seems to attract all sorts of attention, and our new male protagonist having a mysterious Pokeball, which has definitely never been done in Pokemon before, and has never infamously ended up being incredibly...
We're wrapping it up. GS Ball's coming back, baby.
yeah, I mean, I guess you guys didn't even mention it, right? But like, we're talking about a whole new cast. Like
one exception
cast by the looks of things.
One exception: Ikurai Otani is still playing a Pikachu.
Of course.
But it has a hat now. Cue the Malibu Stacy hat clip.
It's a cool Pikachu.
Yes, it is slightly gruffer than your previous Pikachu.
There does not appear to be any returning characters. Of course, Ash Pikachu retired. So now, as is mentioned, now we have Liko and Roy as our like dual protagonists. Yeah. And it's funny that, you know, the main connection of Scarlet and Violet just seems to be, and those two have the starters from Scarlet and Violet. Yeah. Anyway, let's go over here.
I think the idea is that Liko is from Paldea and actually goes to like a school, whereas Roy is from Kanto.
Okay,
yeah.
A school is a noted part of that
right.
game.
But I guess it doesn't seem like she goes to the Pokemon school that is depicted.
No, she just goes to generic Japanese high school.
Yeah. I mean, in some regards, I guess it's interesting, right? That like it feels like at this point the Pokemon anime feels, or at least the staff working on that anime feel very comfortable about not like stressing over brand synergy and sticking to the games, right? Like I feel like that was always the thing about the Pokemon anime, right? Is like, whatever region Ash is in is where the current games are at, right? So
right.
And also, like the cool Pokemon of the week showing up is generally whatever has the marketing push
Right.
behind it right now. So
it's
Yeah.
Lucario again.
Don't even get me started. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
This new season seems to be is going to be written by the
That's what I was about to bring up.
All right,
Yeah.
no, it's going to be
Daisato.
Yeah, right. But no, the
Oh.
first thing I wanted to say was this is going to be the showrunner or like the executive director or whatever they call it in the anime industry is going to be the same person who did Sun and Moon and Ash's Victory Lap, which is like the 2 seasons of Pokemon we really like. But then, yes, the head writer is our friend Daisato.
So, for people who are not familiar with Daisato, he wrote most of Eureka 7, which is one of the best animes ever made, and then he has written a series of increasingly worse attempts to recapture that magic.
It's I
the
think
man wrote Cowboy Bebop. Like,
some of it.
He wrote
certain episodes of Cowboy
Right.
Bebop.
I think the funny thing about Daisato to me is that like you glance at his resume and it's a bunch of really well regarded shows, and then you look at like the specifics of what he's done, and I feel like I personally never like what he's done, which is funny. But he is a noted, and he's a noted and respected member of the industry.
Well, he's
a
a working writer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is a guy you get to fill up the writer's room on a
Yeah.
high-profile show.
Yeah. And
I mean, that's a step up for the Pokemon anime, which has normally, mostly been staffed by nameless, hardworking professionals, and also like an animation crew mostly out of Korea and Thailand and all that stuff. But,
maybe now that Pokemon's written by the writer of Ace Combat 3 Electrosphere, we can really move into a new era.
Sure.
It'll be interesting, put it that way.
Yeah, it seems like Pokemon, for better or worse, will be one to keep an eye on just to see how they approach, how they forge their new identity.
I mean, it's interesting. Like, why would they make this decision
to
move on after 25 years?
Yeah, it is literally a thing which will, like, there aren't many days in which, series that have run for a quarter of a century end and then get rebooted. So it's going to be fascinating to see.
It would be very funny if the reason is something incredibly banal, like Rika Matsumoto being like, you know what, guys, I think I'm gonna retire.
I mean, they would replace her in a.
There were a couple There were a couple headlines several months ago about Rika Matsumoto publicly talking about how she had never gotten royalties for the Pokemon theme song.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's how that works, right? Yeah, it's.
Well, we got to move on. So on to
Speaking
we'll
of
keep an eye
royalty.
Yeah, speaking of royal, yes, sure, we'll take that one. Aqua.
Yeah, go for the segue.
Ranking of Kings is back? Question mark. It will be. I still do not know the full context, but it seems like they'll be airing like a special episode or like a mini OVA.
Annulus does have it as a TV anime season, so
it is definitely more than one episode. But what exactly that means, I don't know.
I mean, we've seen TV anime be more willing to experiment with format recently. Like there was like a one-off Attack on Titan thing earlier this season, right? I
mean, Zig, that might just be because seasons don't mean anything anymore.
Kind of.
Right.
I mean,
we are now on Attack on Titan, the final season, part 3, part 1, or something like this.
No, but also, like, in a more serious note, right? Like anime is one of the few things that still is largely a linear experience based on TV airing time, right? And I think we're beginning to see kind of like some cracks in that emerge as time goes by.
Most certainly. But getting back to the show itself, so, I think we've all, across multiple podcasts, have, talked many times about Ranking of Kings and maybe how we felt about Ranking of Kings by the time it concluded its first season. So, the ball is in your guys' court. Like, are you down for more Ranking of Kings? Does this excite you?
I'm apprehensive. I think I'll tune in to an episode or two and see how I feel, like it's an uphill battle, right? Like
yeah, I mean, it is a shame that we even talk of a show like this in this tone, but I think I broadly fall in line with you.
I think it's so
of...
incredibly strange how, because I personally never saw the ending of Ranking of Kings, and that's not because I dropped. No, that's not because I dropped it because I didn't like it or something. It's just something happened that caused me to be like 2 episodes behind, and I never really caught up.
It happened,
and then I heard on the podcast that you guys were disappointed, so I never bothered. But it is strange to me how a show that we were so excited about, and now, not even a year later, we're here sighing about, like, well, I guess I'll watch the next season.
It was our number 2 anime of
yeah.
And yeah, I think that says something about how disappointing that ending was, when we can rank it so highly and yet still be kind of apprehensive about what's coming next,
or completely uninterested in how it continues.
For clarification, I did not watch Ranking of Kings, but hearing you guys talk about that ending, it sounded devastating, and not in the good way. Like,
but
that's a good way to put it. Yes.
Would you say it? Because that ending, if I understand correctly, it is mostly a bad resolution to that plot line, but doesn't necessarily have ramifications for how the show could continue.
Yeah, I mean, they at the end, Boji goes off to, make his own way, right?
Like, right. Yeah, but the whole thing where he forgives Miranjo, which seems to be the crux of your beef with the ending, do you think that could affect the show's quality going forward?
Like, in theory, you have a point, Aqua, where it ends poorly, but it does clean the slate. I guess is how you could just
All I'm saying is Miranjo shows up multiple times in this PV.
Oh, does she? Oh no, never.
Because I thought they would continue to flesh out this whole idea of the ranking of kings, right?
One assumes,
and not necessarily the whole Miranjo demon possession king boss thing.
Right.
Well, unfortunately, that stuff is tied to the kind of main plot, if that makes sense, because Boji's actions, or the actions of Boji's actions, Daida's actions, everybody's actions at the end of season 1,
right? Boji, not to be confused with Bocchi, the other disaster person.
No, not quite. Yes. Unfortunately, kind of also pretty clearly sets out sets the plates out for what the conflict of what the next overarching conflict will be, if that makes sense. Even if this anime, this new season of Ranking of Kings doesn't focus on that stuff is always going to exist in the periphery because of how they established it at the end of the first season.
And it at least told you about the show's value. Well, at least it teaches you now that if Boji is willing to forgive Miranjo, he will be willing to forgive anyone and anything that will still cross his path, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think that one of the reasons why we are so apprehensive about it is that when something like that happens to a show that up to that point has been so confident and assured in its storytelling, it kind of breaks the aura of invincibility around that storytelling. Suddenly you're like, well, my confidence in the storytelling is broken because they clearly didn't understand the story as well as I assumed that they did. And that means that, that guarantee of minimum quality is no longer there. So I think it's, and again, I've not seen Ranking of Kings, but this is just from my experience of watching other shows that had similar issues. You just no longer have the confidence that they grasp the character in the same way that they grasp the nature of the show.
I think that's a very good way of putting it, Zig. I think that actually gets to the core of, because I think here's the thing, right? You look at it from the bird's eye view. Ranking of Kings is still a very well made show with there is nothing about it that there's nothing inherently broken about Ranking of Kings, right? But when you start that strong and you give off this impression of invincibility, it is the Superman is fallible thing, right? It is like, I remember saying during the first half of Ranking of Kings,
right,
like, this
show
show
can do no wrong, right?
can do no wrong, right? Because it gave off that impression, right? Everything it did, right? The Queen Hiling stuff, the Dorsch stuff, all the stuff it did with all the characters, right? We don't need to talk about it all, but
right.
every character beat that I think any lesser anime would have messed up or done a worse version of it. Like, Ranking of Kings made it look effortless, and
that just means that if it does fall, the fall is harder, right? Because
exactly.
You feel like you have come to an understanding with the show that it will do the thing that is consistent with its characters, its values, its level of quality, And in a certain sense, that means that when good shows become bad, it's that much harder to take than when mediocre shows become bad, right? I think that
none of us are crying over a high card.
Yeah. But I think, this is not a direct comparison. I don't think the level of quality was as high, but I think I felt broadly the same way about Wonder Egg Priority, which was an incredibly good show, which seemed to understand the message that it was speaking. And part of the reason why the ending of that show is so bad is that it reveals that actually, no, we kind of just winged it. So, it's a similar thing. You can never regain that level of appreciation, and I think that's why people, us included, are leery about this continuation, because even if it gets good again, it won't be quite the same, and that's I think that's a challenge. I think that's an interesting challenge for the showrunners, for the writers, and stuff like that. Right? How can you sort of rebuild that connection with the audience?
Yeah, I think at the core of it, as Eero said at the very start, I think it is a thing of, we will, those of us who watched that show to completion will probably watch this new one, but it will most certainly be an uphill battle. Well, speaking of a show that I really, really hope does not have a Ranking of Kings-esque downfall.
Oh no.
Mobile Suit Gundam, the Witch from Mercury.
I wanted to say, is that even possible? Is this show still on the regular good to bad rating scale? Or have we gone so far off the deep
Ichiro
end?
Kochi might stare at the screen and say, "What if I said to kill all Japanese?" And it can. That man has written shows that have set the table nicely and then immediately upended the table. Right?
No chill.
Okay, but
absolutely no chill.
My counteract for that is that I had almost as much fun watching Code Geass disintegrate as I did when it was good. The first half of R2 especially is such an epic train wreck that it's incredibly funny. I think that, Witch from Mercury, I think we're all sort of in awe because of just how hard that ending of season 1 went.
Right.
Yeah.
But I will say that I think that it is so far fairly closely sticking to the standard Gundam playbook with some perhaps more gonzo presentation. I don't foresee a huge drop-off in quality. I think that I think that a lot will depend on how well they can articulate the sort of web of political and economical alliances, because that's always the thing, right? If you're writing a political drama, which, let's be honest, this mostly is, even though it's also a robot show.
I mean, that's Gundam.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you saying that, unlike most mecha shows?
No, I'm not. I'm saying like most mecha shows.
Yeah, like most mecha shows. But yeah, I think that, because Suletta crushing that guy and Miorine being all shell shocked is a super effective cliffhanger. But how do you pick up the more nuanced parts of the story after that? That to me is the interesting bit.
I mean, I don't want to get into frame by frame PV speculation here, but watching that PV, it seems like they're back in school. I I was so sure that I was like, okay, school over, global scale warfare starts now.
It's very funny if they're gonna treat this like as if Miorina had like seen
They just had a
Suletta drunkenly
breakup.
kissing
Yeah.
another girl at a party or something.
It's this weird thing of like, again, like it's hard to speculate just based off of PVs and promotional imagery. You know, the first promo image of season 2, right? The very like Renaissance painting-esque, like Suletta kneeling on the ground in the darkness, Miorine in the light, like extending her hand while looking off to the horizon, very much gave the impression of, oh, is season 2 or part 2 going to be about deprogramming Suletta, right? Is that going to be Miorine's goal? But then you have the promo, the very Tomino-inspired poster for season 2 that was just released the other day. With,
just like 100% people reaching their hands out to things.
Yeah.
To Miorine specifically, right? Miorine is isolated and alone, and Suletta, along with the rest of the cast, is reaching out to her. While Choo Choo was doing her best Superman impression, I don't know, but
Choo Choo's always got her fists at the ready.
Yeah. Flying fist first. I mean, I think that like a good show can be about both. Like a good show can be like Miorine is scared of Suletta now, and Suletta needs to learn how to like overcome whatever fucked up thing her mother has done to her. And for the record, you know, I don't think it's necessarily as sci-fi as we psychologically programmed her. You know, I think that it could just be good old-fashioned abusive parenting. But
sure. I mean, when I say deprogramming, I even mean deprogramming in the way that term was used for like
terrorists and stuff. Yeah,
or like deprogramming, you know, the Nazi regime post-war.
Right. But I think, you know, a good show can balance those two threads effectively. Right, you can tell a story where both of the lead characters have to go on a journey.
Sure.
You know,
yes.
I even think you can do that in the confines of the school system, because I think there's an interesting story to be told about. Oh, we're back in school because that's where we're meant to be.
Right, but
all
nothing
the shit
is
falling.
the same.
Yeah, all the shit is falling around outside, falling apart around us. You know, and
it turns out all those stupid duels we did about who gets to date whom.
Oh boy! Never forget that this man also wrote Valve Rave, which involved with the school declaring independence.
I know. Look, Ichiro. He also wrote Lupin Part 5. Okay.
I know. It's why it's funny.
You just don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
I think the real question, and it's the same question that we asked ourselves when we had finished watching the first half. I think it can tell a great story about these two, you know, young women, you know, finding solace in each other and finding what was missing in them in each other. My question is, can it do that along with a global scale conflict in 12 episodes?
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Like, also, I still don't think, like, a lot of people were very definitive on this at the end of season 1. It's like, you know, we were having fun with wow, cool robot. Now it's war is bad. But honestly, crushing a dude into paste with a giant robot hand, that's still wow, cool robot. Honestly, like.
That's at the perfect intersection of the two.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also,
right.
I'm not necessarily certain that this is automatically going to escalate into an all-out conflict or like an all-out war.
It would be very out of character for the series if it did not escalate onto some level. Like, perhaps not a planet or like system-wide war, but definitely like a corpo war or something.
I think it will escalate because, I mean, yes, when I say global conflict, I don't necessarily mean like on the scale of, say, the original UC, but I do think when I say global, I just think that too many things happen at the end of the first half that like too many like political and like geographic entities are now involved, right? Like you have the corpse, you know, you have.
Remember, Bob killed his own father.
Right.
So
Yes.
that also happened.
I mean, and also it's like open season on Delling, right? Like,
yeah.
And also,
right.
why have like Earth ruled by a series of shady corporations if you're not going to have an all-out corpo war at some point?
Yes.
Like, so, I mean, they will escalate, but the question is how they do it and to
Right.
what end, right? Like, the key thing of every Gundam show is like, how can we effectively tell the moral and political heart of the story while at the same time delivering like cool robot shit. And
right.
some shows get that balance right and some shows get them very wrong. And
so you're saying that is, how can we deliver the message that war is bad while also making people say, wow, cool robot?
I mean, sometimes you can, the very best Gundam shows, I think, make wow, cool robot into a message that says war is bad. See 0080, for example.
I think other than the UC, I'm pretty sure G-Witch is the line I now own the most Gunpla from.
Wow.
I really like the kit.
What about builders? What about build?
No, well, there's a couple of designs I really like in build, but I did not buy every design, you know?
Okay,
I did not get... Like, yes, did I buy 3 copies of the K9 Sniper? Yes, of course I did.
Oh, you're not going to become one of those army building guys who owns like 40s.
No, it's more of a kit bash thing. You know, it's more like, oh, I really like this part and I want to incorporate it into multiple custom builds.
I may sound stupid, but there aren't even that many different robots in G-Witch.
There's been quite a few.
I'm counting on my fingers here. We've got what? Okay, we've got Ariel. We've got Lafrith.
You got the Phylact.
We got the Pharact. You've got the Dulanza. You've got the
Elon's thing.
You've got the Bigger Boo. You've got the Demi Trainer. You have the Demi Trainer Choo Choo Custom. You have the
Fight Gundams.
The Witches from Earth after thing. Yeah,
those are two. Yeah. What's the successor of the Bigger Boo? I'm butchering pronunciation.
You have both the Ariel and the powered up Ariel.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the point is, I'll say this within. Okay, fine. Maybe not the most ever. I will say in the context of a 12 episode series.
Right.
It is a weirdly high batting average for me, which is not always the case. Like I'd say most Gundams, I probably get like one. There's always like at least one design that makes me go, damn, this show might be a complete piece of shit, but that's a cool robot.
Yeah, we watched Kyokai Senki.
God.
But do you own any Gundam Age Gunpla? G.
What?
Gundam Age.
I do.
I own some Gundam Age Gunpla.
Aaron owns Gundam Age Gunpla.
I ain't even seen Gundam Age.
Well, that tells you how good the Age line actually was. It's surprisingly decent.
The Age looks pretty alright. My understanding is that the Gunpla
goodness, we can't talk about this.
With that show.
Well, okay, speaking of Gunpla then.
Yes.
Let's talk about the next show.
Speaking of needlessly obsessing over cheap trash.
The show that contains the highest proportion of Gundams per head.
Birdie Wing, Golf Girl Story, Season 2.
I hope more incredibly obscure Gunpla keep showing up.
God.
I can't believe it's back, guys.
What can we even say about this?
My only concern is that like we have spent so long hyping this thing up in our heads that reality will inevitably,
of course,
that it's just going to be a slightly off-kilter generic sports show.
At this point, I kind of want it to just be like JoJo levels of crazy, and it's never quite going to get to that. But like. Nobody's going to set themselves on fire to find their opponent's weaknesses.
Well, so my main source of optimism for me is I said similar things after the end of the Gulf Mafia arc, right? I remember, like, you can go back to the podcasts.
Yes.
You can never claim, look, I was never a hater. I never doubted Birdie Wing, all right? I always believed. But after Gulf Mafia, and you tell us she's just going to golf school in Japan, I was definitely of the opinion they can't. They can't match Golf Mafia like that. Like it's impossible, right? And then the first episode, Eve goes to Japan fucking what's that gag? It's like, hey, you
Where
know
she
Japanese?
says, yeah,
Yeah,
I guess I do. And that's it. That's all that ever gets explained.
And
that was also
like
the
that.
moment for me where I was like, okay, they're on the right track with this.
Yes, that tell me that even if the subject matter of the show itself gets a little bit more low key compared to Golf Mafia, I think the strength of the dialogue and the character writing and just the full-throated like embrace of that show's sensibilities, my hope is that stuff carries through in the second half.
I mean, there is that shot in the PV of the lady who looks like she's going Super Saiyan, which is encouraging. I think that, realistically, I think that, if they can keep that level of like, it's just the sort of like the bubbling level of background silliness that sort of permeates that show.
Right.
Like, because like ostensibly the things that are happening are like goofy but semi-realistic, but every so often something truly insane will come in, and it's those little moments of like off the edge.
Just the Seiren energy of this was written by a person who does not live on this planet.
Or like this was written and then somebody came along and annotated it in Sharpie or something.
Right.
Like that. Like the girl with the golf stand, or I'll kill you in golf. Or, I mean, like, the PV also suggests that we're going to get into the mysterious background of Raya Amuro. Definitely not Amuro Ray.
Eve still has her backstory to be revealed, right?
Yes.
There's
her backstory would definitely not show Aznavour.
All right. I mean, hey, this is kind of our last chance to get our bets in, right? Are Eve and Aoi secretly related?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to take no on that one.
Okay, are one of them secretly a clone or some sort of like bio-organic experiment?
Genetically engineered super golfer.
Yeah.
I mean, Aoi is already that, right?
I mean,
like,
there's also the thing where Eve looks suspiciously like Aoi's mom.
Yeah.
Yes, that's sort of what I was getting at.
Right. Yeah. Someone like harvested genetic material off of a golf ball and like created the perfect golfer.
Yeah, like we fucking serpentored the world's greatest golfer.
Yeah. No, okay, yeah. Like, no, imagine, okay, this is what it is, right? Is that Aoi is actually truly, the progeny of her two genetic parents, right? The two greatest golfers in the world. But Eve is the Agent 47 of golfers.
Yeah.
And
we took teas from the 5 greatest golfers and grinded them up to
Les enfants terribles.
And so,
brother, I got all the recessive genes.
Somebody remake that Liquid Snake cutscene where he's talking about golf instead.
Oh man. But, I mean, yeah, I guess on some level, yes. What else is there to say? This was a deeply entertaining show that I think really caught us all. But
I'm kind of encouraged that they gave it an entire year, like because secretly, like one of the things that was pleasing about that show was that it always kind of looked nice and had like a nice production. And
looked
so,
okay.
I look, man, like you don't draw a flying car with rainbows behind it in a single day,
right?
But I think that giving it that time is not necessarily a mark of confidence, but I think that it's
You're probably right. I guess the perspective I come from is Birdie Wing is animated by the same studio currently working on Witch from Mercury.
Yes.
And my understanding is that project quickly became an all-hands-on-deck situation.
Right, but what about Witch from Mercury?
And so what I'm saying is, was Birdie Wing given the time it needed, or is it more there was literally nobody available to work on Birdie Wing?
I mean, I think the question is which one of those outcomes would produce a better show? It's not entirely clear.
Fair enough. But
I don't know. We've memed it up enough. I'm interested to see where this lands on the reality scale.
I just want something to. I don't know if it can anymore because now my guard's up, but I want something to catch me off guard on the same level as Rose's deal at the end of that episode, because that blinds that really got me, right? Yeah.
I mean, you'll never get caught like that ever again, right? That's
I mean,
always the thing with
the contrast
fiction
from
is-
gangland killing to wow, the drinks are free might be one of the hardest turns I've ever seen.
I still think the
I-
best episode of that show is the one with Viper and her magical titty sweat that ends with Aoi leaving on the plane and leaving behind the
Tears
sad
of Pac-Man.
Tears of
Pac-Man.
Pac-Man.
we can't just
Right. Yeah,
we can't
recap
just
every
recap.
moment we
I know, yeah.
love from Birdie
Well,
Wing,
yeah.
but I hope.
I just wanted to keep that spirit, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, yes, and I hope to anybody listening, the tone in our voices communicate just how delighted we were with that show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Birdie.
All right, well, with all the returning shows taken care of for spring 2023, let's get into some of the new faces that we have to look forward to. Based on the list we have here, it seems like we definitely have, if not like, necessarily an embarrassment of riches, we have at least a couple here that are definitely going to be worth keeping an eye on.
There's
The first of
certainly a
those
richness of embarrassment.
is that so? Well,
We've
Aqua,
excised all isekai from this list.
yes, no isekai on this list. I run a tight ship.
Get
All
out
right,
here, yeah.
isekai immediately gets thrown overboard.
Isekai, leave this place.
Yes, unless you are Yoshiyuki Tomino's 1983 masterpiece, Aura Battler Dunbine. And now that I've truly murdered the segue I was going to set up,
Sorry.
Aqua, tell us about Oshi no Ko, or does it have a Western title?
Not really. I've
It's
seen
the Western title that they put it in brackets.
Yeah. Oh god.
I mean, no, that's just aiming like alphabetical order, so it will always show up first.
Oh, yeah. Not me either.
Yeah, so Oshinoko is a very strange thing to talk about.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is Shonen Jump, isn't it?
No, it is not. It is
Okay.
Shueisha because it is on Manga Plus, but
So
it is
it
not.
their like Jump Plus?
It's
or
not
whatever?
Jump Plus either. I don't know exactly what it is because it didn't start out in a Jump property, but it eventually moved there. But what this is a collaboration between Aka Akasaka, genius mangaka Aka Akasaka, two weekly publications at the same time.
What else has this person done?
This is the mangaka of Kaguya-sama Love is War.
Okay.
A common GLORIO favorite.
Teaming up with Mengo Yokoyari, who is the artist and writer of Scum's Wish. And
I see this is
I
catnip for
noted
you.
Aqua Gay favorite.
So Oshinoko is a kind of sort of midway point between the two. It is not a straight up comedy, but it is also not a psychodrama.
My brain literally cannot imagine a meeting point between Kaguya-sama and Scum's Wish. Like, you could barely think of two shows that are more diametrically opposed.
Yeah, well. No, what this essentially is Aka Akasaka, who apparently has a background in working as like a jobber in the entertainment industry, like in like television or at a record company or something. And this is basically him eviscerating the Japanese entertainment industry based on his own experiences as well as the people he met making the Kaguya-sama live action movies. And
So what is the premise exactly?
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? Because a lot about the show sort of hinges on a twist in chapter 2 or 3 or something. I think this is also why they're going for a 90-minute premiere episode.
Oh, it's one of these.
If I'm correct.
Man.
I believe the premiere was actually shown in theaters in Japan.
Yeah, because you don't really know what the show is going to be unless...
Triple length episode 0.
Yeah.
How much walking in circles is there?
So the idea is our main character is a gynecologist who works at a hospital.
Okay.
And he is a big fan of this pop singer / idol lady. or a girl really, because she's teen.
Idol.
Yeah, an idol. And one day he actually meets his idol because she comes into his ward revealing that she has actually been pregnant for 9 months and she's about to give birth. So while he's, delivering her child, trying to keep everything under wraps because she's an idol and, idols can't have relationships, let alone bear children, he gets murdered by an obsessive fan who wants to, protect the purity of his waifu. And as he dies,
is he the child?
Yes, he reincarnates into the child of his favorite idol.
Okay.
It really speaks to how fucking good this must be that Aqua is here saying this to us with a straight face.
I honestly could not have guessed that twist in a million years, and that's because it's fucking stupid.
Stupid. Yes, it is stupid.
But they make it work, apparently.
The thing is that's not really what the manga is about. I want to say,
no, don't give it away.
No, I'm not going to give away the twist, because that's not the twist.
Well, maybe tell us what it does so well then.
So
the thing is, the manga is not. I want to say that the reincarnation aspect is really irrelevant, and that is just cashing in on a trend, but that's not necessarily the case. They do.
Does this become? So, I don't mean to interrupt, but does this be based on how you're talking about it and the gears in my head turning? Does this pivot towards something more Erased?
Something like that, yes. Wherein we have the idea of the reincarnation is to put an adult who has the perspective of a fan of this idol into the role of the child who has the perspective of this is my mother. And you know how annoying stans on Twitter refer to their favorite pop singer as mother?
Do they?
Yes,
oh my
they
God.
do.
I'm no psychologist, but I think even I could write a paper on that.
So the show kind of plays with that interesting idea of
is it
what is healthy fandom, what is toxic fandom, what is
okay.
Is it a story about the separation between people and public image and
it's about parasocial relationships?
Partially.
Okay, yeah, I mean that is an interesting angle to take. It's just it's also about a gynecologist reincarnating.
Right.
That is such an insane.
The thing is, the fact that he is now the child of his favorite idol is almost never played for wish fulfillment. It very quickly turns into a show where it's where he grows up, as a teenager, and as the child of an idol, he is also expected to enter the entertainment industry, but he has certain beef with people who have wronged his mother/favorite idol
in ways that he technically could never know about.
Right. So it sort of becomes this detective/revenge story that deals with a lot of the shitty sides of the entertainment industry,
I'll say one thing. This sounds really weird, and I am drawn to really weird things.
I mean, honestly, the things once you get past the reincarnated gynecologist thing, the more you talk about this,
aside from that,
I made sure to try to deliver that as straightforward as possible.
Yes, I appreciate it.
It's sometimes you need a gonzo premise to drive an interesting story.
Right.
I mean, I remember when, just to bring up that Erased comparison again, I remember when we all heard about Erased and we all went, really? Wish fulfillment, reincarnation shit? Boring.
Right.
How many times, okay, let's, I don't think it's, is it as weird? I don't know. How many times did I, have to, convince you guys, no, trust me, guys, Beastars is really good. You have to believe me.
It didn't take that long. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think The thing about Beastars and like, look, I got into anime and manga because it's full of weird and crazy ideas.
Right,
And
and so-
when something weird happens, I first go, "Is this probably somebody's fetish?" And then when I rule out that, then I'm like, "Okay, now I'm interested."
Well,
Like,
sometimes it can be both, but
yeah, okay, but you know,
Raiden
what I
Abyss
mean,
says
you know.
hi.
Mhm.
Yeah, but like, if like, I think the key thing is like, is it an insane idea, but also like effectively and interestingly executed, right? And by all
Right.
accounts, it sounds like it is. So
Mhm.
that is enough to make
and-
me.
The thing of it existing at the halfway point between the other two works of the authors is like, I wouldn't call it. It's not a comedy like Kaguya-sama. Like, it has some goofy bits, but it is concerned with the same themes as Kaguya-sama, which is like the
Who can
image,
rap the best?
the image that people project to the outer world
Right,
Mhm.
yes.
versus their actual feelings, and in that way, it does actually
Like,
have something in common with
Yeah.
Comes Wish.
What are the
Okay, but
concepts in Japanese, like honnen, tatemae, or something? The like inner feelings and the outer feelings,
Right.
like the interface and the outer face,
Which is a very, very big thing in Kaguya-sama, especially in what I assume will be the movie, where, like, I'm assuming that's the arc that the movie covers.
we have to play to the crowd, okay? So, Aqua, it's just like Persona then.
But yeah,
But no,
it's interesting. Like,
Yeah. Like I
Also,
yeah,
we should also mention that this is a Doga Kobo show, a studio almost as completely all over the shop as that premise sounds.
right?
So
And I mean, it's pretty high profile. Like, they announced this relatively long ago. They seem to be going all out with the promotion, like putting it in cinemas and stuff like that. Like, yeah. And
seems like a season for high profile anime with somewhat collar tugging premises.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
So
sometimes
I'm reading. This is Weekly Young Jump, so that's Shueisha's Seinen Weekly, not the Shonen Jump. Anyway, go ahead. Continue with the segue. I'm sorry.
No, just that's something to look forward to. And actually, it is not a great segue because that's the show after the next show.
Oh, my mistake.
But we do have to move on, so we'll just quickly move to Insomniacs After School, which I'm not super familiar with. I'm mainly familiar with it because it is the same author as the manga Fujiyama-san's Adolescence, which is a manga about a tall girl.
Oh,
tell me more.
Tell me more. Yeah,
that's so out of character for you.
Look.
Oh, yeah, tell me more.
It's just funny because this author clearly has a type because, like, like almost the exact same like type of girl shows up in this manga as well. At Insomniacs After School. I mainly bring it up because
I've been reading Telor Gotobanashi. Go ahead.
Because in all seriousness, Gel's not here with us. I feel like we got to give him a little representation. This feels like a Gel show. It's basically about two high schoolers who suffer from insomnia and a general sense of like teenage like listlessness and malaise, kind of meeting and hanging out.
Is this called the Night Gaiden? Like,
it kind of has that vibe, right? Except without the supernatural elements.
Except with no hot older lady vampires.
No, just very
taller lady vampires.
Right, just a very cute like girl next door type with bushy eyebrows.
But, I mean, if this were really a show about teenage insomnia, it would be about staying up till 2 a.m. on MSN Messenger. But,
I mean, yes, like the least realistic part of this premise is that like two young teenagers with insomnia would hang out like, at night on the streets and not instead, I don't know, playing
message
fucking
each other
Fortnite till 3 in the morning or something. It seems based on Fujiyama-san was an enjoyable manga, at least for me, anyways. So same author. So I don't know.
Looks like Leiden Films is working on this.
Yeah. So I guess. We'll look forward to hearing Gel's take on it.
Yes,
This is his show.
That's
Like,
fair.
there's no ambiguity here. He's gonna take this show for first looks.
Music by Yuki Hayashi.
Oh, really?
Ooh.
Oh, okay. I actually did not know that. Damn, it's those orchestrated swells when they're looking at the stars are going to be great, I guess. But now that we get past that, we can get into maybe the other high-profile, high-budget, questionably premised manga adaptation of the season, which is Tengoku Daimakyo or Heavenly Delusion, which is a seinen manga by Masakazu Ishiguro, who of Sorademo fame, if anybody remembers that show.
Oh, right,
slash manga. And
that was the Shaft show with a maid, right?
With the maids, yes.
Yeah.
Which I guess you could.
I don't know. I don't got anything on that.
No, I mean the main thing that's notable about it is the guy's art style. He has a very
sure.
I don't even know how to describe it. Like, simple's not the right word, but
Pulp.
It honestly has a little bit of like
some of this key art looks like some of this key art looks like classic like 70s horror posters and stuff like
maybe,
that.
Yeah,
that very kind of like garish kind of like.
Well, I think that's kind of that feels like it was more a choice for the anime poster. I'd say the manga art kind of has that like.
Okay, I see what you mean.
I don't like when I say Akira, I don't mean the same level of like detail, but I mean in that like it's not quite the typical anime style.
Right, a little more humanish.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have. Thank you, Ira. I should have written some notes to better explain this. I'm kind of flying blind here. I apologize. But,
I also can't really find the words to describe it.
I mean, also, this is an audio medium, so, you know, people look it up.
Look it up, people. All right, anyways, so Heavenly Delusion basically tells two parallel stories about different sets of characters in different settings. And sort of the mystery of the show is finding out how the two sort of intertwine with each other. One is about a couple of teenagers traveling through post-apocalyptic Japan, which has fallen to a sort of unknown catastrophe and is now inhabited by these sort of mysterious human-eating alien creatures, I guess, is how I'd put it.
Okay.
They kind of look like giant water fleas, I guess, like what was that thing called? Like a tardigrade?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like one of those
water bears.
Yeah.
Tardigrade,
basically.
Yeah.
And the couple are searching for something nebulously called heaven, which may hold the answers to a particular condition that one of the characters has, and the nature of that condition. And the nature of why these two are traveling together is one half of the mystery. Parallel to this is another story about a group of children who live in an isolated facility where they are supervised by the facility's adult caregivers, scientists, and seemingly omniscient AI.
Okay.
Of note, one of the characters in this facility looks identical to one of the characters in the post-apocalyptic storyline. And
morphic resonance.
Right. So my immediate assumption here is something about like clones or like a Promised Neverland situation where they're being farmed for these monsters or something. Don't add.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't have to tell me if that's correct.
No, I mean, I'm saying in the sense that like those that definitely is probably the vibe that Heavenly Delusion gives off of like, again, it's one half is post-apocalyptic, the other is like seemingly sci-fi, and
they're definitely not taking place at the same time in the same place.
And like the thing that I really. So I'll start with the good. The things I really like about Heavenly Delusion is, I guess, a little bit like Oshi no Ko, it's willing to be weird, right? Like the very redundant derivative, like elevator pitch on Heavenly Delusion is that it's kind of like, I don't know, like maybe Promised Neverland by way of Yoko Taro. Like
like From the New World, didn't that have some of that stuff?
Yeah. Like it's a post-apocalyptic story that, hell, I mean, to speak of Yoko Taro, maybe in a little like Nier in it, honestly. It is a post-apocalyptic story that is really interested in questions about personhood and especially identity, both perceived and internalized. And like the works of Yoko Taro, is not remotely afraid to use fairly gratuitous writing and imagery to achieve those aims.
Right.
I would say both storylines are willing to get into some pretty like surreal, strange, and sometimes just outright off-putting subject matter. But and I guess maybe where some of the collar tugging comes from is, I think Heavenly Delusion probably has a shakier batting average than Yoko Taro does in this regard. Like, you know,
right.
Like,
and
the reason,
let's be clear, Yoko Taro does not have a like 100% batting average either.
I guess the thing I would say though is the reason we are often forgiving and in fact very receptive to Yoko Taro's style of writing is he will introduce these upsetting things and then justify them narratively or approach them with the nuance and like execution that we feel they deserve. Heavenly Delusion feels sometimes like a work of similar ambitions but shorter reach.
Yeah,
but
we were talking about this the other day, and you mentioned like Made in Abyss as a comparison point.
Yes,
right?
I would use. Yes, thank you. Actually, yes, thank you for reminding me of that because I almost forgot it. But yes, Made in Abyss is probably the best comparison for Heavenly Delusion. Like, if you're going into it sight unseen, Made in Abyss is probably the like bar to keep in mind for like, oh, it's going to be this type of work of like, it's going to have some really interesting things to say. It's going to do some really interesting things, but you have to have like the expectation that there is going to be a certain degree of harm involved in its storytelling, I guess is the way I'd put it. And the reality is I'm still reading it. I still like broadly come out positive on Heavenly Delusion. I think, God, like maybe a little bit like Oshi no Ko, there is a maybe not an episode 3 twist, but like an episode 5 twist that y'all, Twitter's gonna be unbearable when that episode comes out.
It already is unbearable. What would the difference be?
Oh man, there's gonna be some takes.
Oh boy.
But,
yeah, sure.
But I do like it. I think the characters are compelling. I think that again, the mystery itself, mysteries are always difficult in this genre, right? It's like because sometimes the teasing of the mystery is better than the reveal itself. And I would say one thing I have enjoyed about Heavenly Delusion is that it has not revealed every mystery in the manga yet. There are still a lot remaining, but I've enjoyed the like weirdly organic way in which it has revealed some of them. Like, like there's like, again, this is like why I cannot. I know it's bad to just like keep comparing it to like somebody else's work, but this is why I kind of like bringing up the Yoko Taro comparison because like there's almost that element of like hindsight based storytelling of like the famous thing about like the original Nier, right, is you play OG Nier the first time, right, and you fight all the bosses, etc., right, and then when you fight them the second time, you now have their language translated. And it gives context to their actions and often ends up intentionally now portraying Nier as a more villainous, like evil character for the things he is doing to the enemies he is fighting, right? And there are some, Heavenly Delusion being a linear story can't quite do the same thing of like reread the chapter and, get a new translation. But it does things of like, it will just like give you insight into characters or even just like the actions of like certain factions that will instantly give you like a retroactive perspective on things that happened earlier in the story, and it will not like explicitly call attention to it. It will not do a flashback. It just kind of expects you, the like reader, to understand. Oh,
To put those pieces
I have to now
together.
look. Yes, I have to now look back on that moment earlier in the story with a different perspective. And I don't know. I guess I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I watched the trailer recently and was like, this looks really interesting and strange.
Yeah,
and then you were like, oh, dang, that's getting an adaptation?
yes,
Right. And I was like, okay, but based on that reaction, I will try to go into this, like, not looking up that much.
I would
Right.
recommend trying to go in blind, yes. The last thing I'll say for it is, like Oshinoko, seems to have a fairly high-profile production behind it, right? It's production IG. The PVs show some really gorgeous, like... Digital tools have gotten very good to the point where I cannot tell these backgrounds are hand-painted or not. Like, I cannot tell they're hand-painted or if this is just, like, digital painting has gotten this good. But, like, there is something to the backgrounds of this show that make me go, wait, is this watercolor? You know? But
it's most likely some sort of hybrid technique. Right?
It probably is, yes. It's just, but it speaks to the level of like fidelity that is going into it.
I mean, production IG tends to run a pretty solid ship technically, at the very least. So, you know, if they're paired with a source material that provides very striking imagery, it can be a pretty potent mix.
Yeah, that's definitely what I'm hoping for. But you know, again, I guess we'll see. This, you know, funnily enough, this could actually be more of a Promised Neverland situation of like, watch the first 2 seasons and then maybe you're good.
See, yeah, all right.
Or maybe it's again Made in Abyss, Promised Neverland. These shows where we're like, wow, yeah, those first 2 seasons really good, but also mileage may vary after that, right? So. But yeah, so that's Heavenly Delusion. Next on the list here we have The Galaxy Next Door.
Yeah,
Iro,
I put this on the list, even though
this one is yours.
I don't think this is that interesting. I've read the manga, been reading the manga for this because it's by the mangaka who did Sweetness and Lightning.
That's an anime you liked.
A very good show.
Which I enjoyed the show of, and then read the manga and also enjoyed the manga. And I don't think this is as good as that. It's kind of...
I would agree, yeah.
What's the
It doesn't have
premise?
as interesting of a premise to me. The premise is roughly that a manga artist is sort of just scraping by because his parents died, and he's taking care of his younger siblings, you know, and, you know, his assistants are going off on their own now, and he's, you know, about to lose his job because he's overworked, and then a pretty lady appears to be his new assistant, and also she might be an alien of some kind, and, you know, it's one of those. And I guess the thing I like about it is similar to Sweetness and Lightning. It has this sort like focus on like the there isn't any cooking. That's the problem. That's the problem. But like it has the sort of
family,
like warm-hearted family stuff of he's taking care of his younger siblings, and they are, you know, tweens who are also struggling with the situation, but
right. I mean,
try to.
Is it like Is it like Sweetness and Lightning, where it does a fairly decent job of accurately portraying children?
Sort of. They might even be too nice.
No, fair enough.
Right.
I mean, that's always a problem in media. But
I feel like adults. I feel like adults constantly forget how shitty children are. Children are the worst, actually.
But also, you know, that sometimes is not very entertaining as part of a story, right? Like, you know.
So
anyway, which one of them is going to grow up and marry him?
Oh my god! Please.
Anyway. The forbidden words. The forbidden knowledge.
Christ.
Thought crime has been committed. Information hazard.
My reaction while looking on any chart was like, "Oh, that's getting an anime. Okay." But like,
Well,
it seems harmless enough.
How big a deal is the alien angle? Because that
What
seems
sort of happened?
a little odd.
What sort of happens is like she like accidentally bonds to him or whatever, right? Like with her alien stuff, and so
She puts her tail into his tail, and
no,
I
and
thought this was more like a lum thing of like by the cultures of my alien tradition, we must now marry or something.
Right, basically, and so
okay,
yeah, and so part of the plot is she's like, well, I wanted to be your manga assistant anyway, but now like I guess we're dating because of this whole alien princess thing, and so he's like,
I guess also now I'm a substitute mother to your siblings.
Right?
Is that where it goes? Right.
A little bit.
I guess where I kind of
but like they tackle this with like a certain amount of realism of, and there's a certain amount of, hey, maybe we do want to be in a relationship, but not this way. We need to get this undone.
Yeah.
You know, we need to speak with your family, etc.
Speak to the in-laws.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, okay, that's good to hear, because I was going to say, honestly, the thing that kind of puts me off about this premise a little bit, right, is like you're talking about the first part, which is like really feels really real, right? The idea of like an oldest sibling having to like at the crossroads of like their passion, but also like the like physical realities of like the household they are now responsible for, and the like realities of like, shit, dog, you guess what? You don't get to make your dreams come true because like, you know, you got mouths to feed, right? Like it's you know, it's sort of like what's her name? It's like what was it? Aqua, blonde hair girl, Dorito chip hair, Bochi.
Nijika,
right? It's like Nijika's sister, right? The implication there, right? Like, oh, she used to be a musician, but she had to give it up when their parents died to raise Nijika, right? And that stuff really resonates with me, right? And then it's like, but you know what would instantly solve a lot of like single struggling households? A hot blonde magical girlfriend.
Yes, who's a great artist in her own right.
The wish fulfillment side of it seems a little at odds with the generally like realistic tone of the premise.
It's mostly just like feel good faff, right?
Sure, right. And this, again, as you say, nothing offensive or wrong with that. You know, it's just I guess you just have to know going in that that's kind of all you're going to get from it, right?
Right. I just sort of felt like Sweetness and Lightning had some of this stuff, like some of these same themes, and also like cooking stuff, and I like cooking stuff.
Yeah.
I would also argue Sweetness and Lightning was a production which benefited a great deal from the amount that was poured into the anime adaptation, like casting an actual girl, like child.
Though I will say, I like the rest of the manga for Sweetness and Lightning is pretty good.
Sure, I think but
it's good.
Yeah.
Like to me, I think the production, as someone who has not read the manga, I felt that the production shine, you know, added something to the story that was already there.
I mean, look, we all, you know, if nothing else, Sweetness and Lightning's long-standing legacy will just be that screen cap of the kid when she's eating the onions or whatever, you know.
The peppers.
Or the peppers where her face looks like she's like disassociating, you know. But yeah, well, hey, you know, sometimes it's nice to have a show like that, right? You know, especially.
I mean, also Sweetness and Lightning was good enough that I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt. Right?
Yeah, totally.
Right. I don't know that I'll watch much of this, but I went, oh yeah, it's that.
Well, Aqua, how about you tell us about the last one on this list? What are these ladies doing in this PA Works anime this time?
What are these words doing in this order?
Now, Skip and Loafer is an adaptation of an award-winning manga, which is I say this award-winning because like it won a fairly prestigious, I think it was like the Manga Taisho Award that it won, which is like
of Dungeon Meshi fame.
Yes.
Of Golden Kamui getting second place 2 years in a row to Dungeon Meshi fame.
No, so the idea is that it's basically it's a very standard, like, this is not a high concept manga. So the idea is that we have a girl from the sticks who goes to high school in the big city, and she goes to live with the relative, and she has a bunch of misconceptions about what life in the big city is like.
And she's just like a bunch of jokes about how she's a hick and doesn't understand social norms.
Not necessarily. It's a bit like that, but it's kind of like, it's a relatively nice, well thought out slice of life, shoujo-ish romance.
But anyway, enough about the latest Precure show.
And it hinges very much on, like, the main character, who is like this magnetic kind of like honest and earnest. Like, her whole thing is like, I want to become a politician, so I need to be, tough, and I need to make it so that I can become student council president in my second year.
Good old country girl.
Yeah.
The kind of person who would be unbelievably insufferable in real life.
Well, yes. I mean, yes.
Yeah.
And they also sort of, like, poke fun at that in the show and stuff. But it's like, it is, like I said, not a high concept manga. It is a story about, teens in high school acting like teens, with a bit of humor, a bit of romance, a bit of drama,
Sure.
but it's just generally well done. It is not necessarily in the PA Works wheelhouse, except for that it's like the main character is like a go-getter, which you usually have, but it is not specific young women in the workplace kind of thing. Like,
I guess my fear here is that, and I suspect a certain amount of this is still bitterness from how your boy Kongming played out, but like, PA Works have a certain tendency to sort of flatten any show into a PA Works shape at this point. And
have we all forgotten Akiba made war so quickly?
Yeah.
That was an original.
Yes.
I must admit, I had completely forgotten that was a PA Works show as well.
I mean,
the thing is,
it's easy to forget.
This also does not really have that PA Works style. It more mimics the style of the manga, which is very, like, sketchy and goofy. Like,
right, yeah. I just, it, for me personally, it's a source of unease. I think that I have been burned by some of that studio's recent productions enough that, like, while recognizing their undoubted talent, on a technical and artistic level, I'm a little wary of things which come with their name on at this point.
Well, from my perspective, I think about the biggest PA Works fumbles of recent memory, and I don't know. It's well, I guess Kongming was an adaptation, so I guess that's not quite true. I was about to say it's all the originals, right? Like, it's Appare Ranman and stuff, but I guess.
But Appare Ranman did not necessarily have the PA Works problem, right? It was just a bad show. Like,
right. Well, so where I was getting more at is, like, so I don't think any of us ever actually, like, got around to reading the Kongming manga, but like, were the issues with your boy Kongming? I guess it's a question we are not equipped to answer. But it's one I guess we probably should have asked, once upon a time. Was it PA Works' fault, or is it the fault of the source material? You know what I mean?
Think it's just I think it's just that the source material is not as goofy as we all would have liked it to be.
And so for something like Skip and Loafer, what I'm getting at is, like, I guess, Aqua, you're familiar with the manga, right? So, like, if the source material is, like, solid and not, like, it doesn't feel like it would be difficult to adapt.
It doesn't seem difficult to adapt at all, no.
Yeah, then I don't know. Again, this is not to say, like, PA Works is going to nail it, but more, it feels like they're, compared to a Kongming, it feels like this has less potential points of failure.
The thing is, you get exactly what you see, which is, a breezy, teen rom-com kind of thing, which is all about the characters and them hanging out and them becoming friends and them being friends, and they're going through all sorts of stuff together. And I like that the manga is relatively, it's drama free. Like, it does not, I mean, not entirely devoid of it, but it doesn't fall into the same pitfalls that so many shoujo high school style shows do. Like this is a manga where the characters have profound reasons steeped in their own insecurities to be catty, and then it gets, when it gets resolved, it is because they talk like proper human beings.
Damn.
And
Whoa.
it's not like soap opera. Like this is, yeah, I want to say something, but it's gonna be a spoiler. But the thing is, like, it pleasantly avoids melodramatic pitfalls by being, relatively grounded, and everyone sort of understands each other, and they're not mean spirited or like looking for reasons to always assume the worst in others, as is so often the case in stories like that.
It's like a nice-hearted, like, ensemble hangout show.
Yeah.
I think there's always room for shows like that in any given season, right? Like, like we are not wanting for melodrama, between Birdie Wing and Gundam alone, we will be filled to bursting with melodrama. So I think it is nice to have a show that can work as a release valve and intentionally, or at least based on what you're saying, Aqua, it seems like it intentionally advertises itself as a low maintenance slice of lifestyle show.
Right. A shoujo romance where the love interest is just a guy who's real nice and not an asshole, but his problem is that everyone is only interested in him because he's really nice and attractive, and he sort of, wonders if he's like his superficial kindness and is like damaging his actual social credit, and it's just like way more realistic and grounded than the broad romantic cliches.
I mean, I can believe handsome people have problems too. I don't sympathize with them, but I can believe it.
I think, I think that everything everyone has said is absolutely right. Like, there is an important spot for like well-written character pieces. God knows we don't get enough of them. I think the only thing is, obviously, I think it's a little hard to get truly excited about a show like that.
Absolutely.
And I think that is partially a failure of my broken brain and the general hype cycle around these things. But I think that for a show like that, I think the gap between good and, truly excellent is much harder to surmount. If
that's the thing,
sense.
right? Because there
the
are
floor
many
is high,
shows,
but the ceiling is low.
There are many shows that exist in that sort of limbo where they're like perfectly fine. They're like, the thing is, I've often written this in like reviews of those kinds of shows. Shows like Just Because, or shows like...
I mean, just to quote an example from this past season, Epon again.
Right. Shows that are just like very competent, because this is something anime has down. Like very competent, low stakes, just good vibes. Shows about sort of teenage awkwardness,
and a little bit of solid character stuff in there as well.
Yeah.
Like we're not we're not trying to damn with faint praise here, but it's difficult to
quantify,
and difficult to like truly
to truly rise above. Like,
absolutely.
you have so many of these. Like, there's almost one good slice of life show every season, but you only get a like South Pole Girls once every 10 years. Like,
right.
Well, it sounds like it sounds like something that's pleasant enough that if that is your fare. For fans of the genre.
Oh God, you ruined it. It's over.
But no, it sounds pleasant enough. Yeah, as we've said, maybe not my thing, but it seems like it is doing its thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. I was gonna say it's time to do our housekeeping, but I just reviewed my notes and I realized there's a little behind the curtains. I have accidentally deleted an entry from the notes here.
Oh God!
Right.
What was there? Oh no!
The Marginal Service.
I will quickly bring up the Marginal Service, an anime original from Studio 3 Hertz. That
3 Hertz.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this maybe speaks to the like sad trajectory of a couple of like anticipated original anime, but the Marginal Service gives me extreme high card energy.
Yeah.
Oh.
But on the other hand, we are other bound to be interested in anything Studio 3 Hertz do.
Apparently, this is apparently Psy Games is involved in this.
Oh boy!
Of course they are.
But yes, the Marginal.
Oh, you mean the
Service...
publishers of the award-winning Rage of Bahamut Genesis?
Yes, but the Marginal Service, just to do real quick, it seems to be like a weirdly construction-themed, supernatural fight guys anime. I don't know, like everybody's wearing construction helmets in this
I'm going to read off a few of the main character names here.
Okay, you have the page open as well. Please go.
Oh, baby.
We have Brian Knight Raider, Bolt Dexter, Lyra Candyheart, Zeno Stokes, Robin Timbert, and Cyrus N. Cougar.
Dude, I fucking love
good.
when I love it when anime write white people names. It's the best.
These are some Death.
Yeah,
these are some Death Note names.
Yeah, fucking Brian Knight Raider of the Gung Ho Guns is
I
here to
think
challenge
Bolt
Vesh
Dexter might be even better. Quite
this
frankly,
does have high card energy. You're right.
Yeah.
But-
You know what I mean, right?
But High Card only has 2 characters with funny names
I
like
pulled
that.
up I pulled up the trailer as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you get what I'm saying though, right? Like I think once upon a time, us specifically, the GLORIO chat, would get really excited for weird anime originals like this.
Yeah.
I still am excited for weird anime originals.
Fair enough. No,
like
I think we
this.
all are, but I think it's that we're always like trying to get our next fix of that specific aspect of anime, right? Because we have our highly anticipated adaptations, we have our household names, but like I think consistently what always gets us the best are your Akudama drives and such, right?
Right.
You're like, just where did that come
Your
from?
anime originals that come out of nowhere.
I mean, Studio 3 Hertz has form with this because
With
they made
anime originals that come out of nowhere.
Yeah, they made both Flip Flappers and Princess Principal, both of which were fantastic. And
So-
you know, like I will watch anything from the creators from the studio that made Flip Flappers.
Oh yeah, you watched Healer Girls a couple seasons ago.
Did you watch Sword Art Online, Gun Gale, whatever?
did.
I did watch one episode.
I did watch that whole show.
Look, sometimes you got to take some
Yeah,
stuff to pay the bills, right? You know, but
So
you know what I mean. Like I will.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess we will see if the sheer weight of these good names can overcome the uphill battle it has against it, but
The curse
who
that
knows,
is
man?
gacha game adjacent anime original.
It's
Look.
very hard to make something stupid, like smartly stupid, right?
You know that I watched Tact Opus Destiny and
I was just about to say, you're gonna try out the Tact Opus Destiny gacha game, which is
fuck no.
finally out.
not a chance, not in a
Absolutely
million
not.
years.
Can't
Not
you
unless
roll? Don't you want to roll for your problematic waifu?
I was about to literally say not unless they give us problematic waifu for free, but so you heard me. I don't even know who's publishing that game, but you heard me. Tact Opus Destiny. The gauntlet's been thrown.
You get a problematic waifu for free, but you have to roll for the second shotgun.
Christ.
All right. Well, on that note, I think now we're ready to get into the housekeeping and wrap up on this podcast. So, as always, you can check us out at theglorioblog.com, where in a few weeks, I guess, you will see us start to post our first look posts for the upcoming anime season. You can follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. We are on co-host at GLORIO. You can subscribe to the podcast itself on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, and YouTube. Goodness, I feel like that list gets longer and longer every time. But yes, like, comment, and subscribe. Leave a review. Hey, engagement. It's good for the metrics. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. And we'll catch you all next time.
Love and peace.